Hello, everybody. I hope some of you are out there and we can get started. I'm going to do one reading today. I did two yesterday, but I'll only be able to do one today. Um, so if you're out there and you want to get started, um, please send me a message in the comments. Let me know where you're from. I'm curious. I know we had someone from Haiti and some from the Middle East. So if you are there, um, I will give you some time and we'll get started here shortly. I'm in Denver, Colorado, and here on lockdown, and I'm starting to do these live sessions. I'm going to try to do them at the same time. Um, Saturday and Sunday for sure. I'm going to see if I can start doing them on the weekends during the weekdays, Monday through Friday as well. So this is my second time, and really looking forward to having you join. Okay, I'm going to go through and hopefully people can join. I'm going to read um, to start, and please let me know if you're out there and you're available. And I will also update these on my YouTube channel. Um, so if you're late or you want to follow along, I will upload these videos to YouTube. And that's widespread English. English all over the world, widespread English. Okay. So here we have the last one. We have timberline vegetation on mountains. Okay. Um, Usually what I like to do, I mean, we can kind of skim over it, but I usually tell students just to skip the first part, really. I mean, we're going question by question. We're not really trying to understand everything. And I think that for the time that you have, I think it's important just to kind of go straight to the questions. Because you can answer all the questions. If you get all the questions correct, um, then you don't really have to understand everything, really. It's just, can you answer the questions? Okay, Kasia, thank you for joining. Good to see you again. Um, oh, I'm sorry that you had to wait. But we're here now, so let's get started. So, which of the following can be inferred from paragraph 1 about both upper and lower timberlines? Okay, so let's read paragraph 1 here. The transition from forest to treeless tundra on a mountain slope is often a dramatic one. Okay, so we have forest to treeless tundra, and this I think is a really good TOEFL word. What is a tundra? We know what the forest is, but what is the tundra? It's going to be a noun. So that's an area with very little vegetation or life, right? So we're talking, not a lot of trees. It says treeless tundra. Not a lot of life going on there. Within a vertical distance of just a few tens of meters, trees disappear as a life form and are replaced by low shrubs, herbs, and grasses. Also, shrubs, like a small bush, small plant. This rapid zone of transition is called the upper timberline or tree line. Okay, that's what we're talking about here as the upper timberline or the tree line. In many semi-arid areas, there are also a lower timberline where the forest passes into steppe or desert at its lower edge, usually because of a lack of moisture. Okay, so here we have our upper timberline and our lower timberline. Okay, and they say what can be inferred about both the upper and lower timberlines? So we have they're both treeless zones. Okay, they're both treeless zones. They both mark forest boundaries. Both are surrounded by desert areas. Both suffer from a lack of moisture. Okay, let's take a look here, and I'd like to get your answers. Give you a second. Let's see what you think. They're both treeless zones. They both mark forest boundaries. Both are surrounded by desert areas. Both suffer from a lack of moisture. Go ahead and when you have your answer, just put it in the comments so I can kind of see. It's good for me to see like what all the students are thinking, and it helps me to address some problems if there are any issues. See, both are surrounded by desert areas. Um, here, this rapid is called the upper timberline. I don't see anything here. It's replaced by low shrubs, herbs, and grasses. So the upper timberline is not surrounded by a desert area. So C is not going to be the answer. We have a D as well. Both suffer from lack of moisture. The lower one here, the lower timberline does, but it doesn't imply that about the upper. One thing I want to remind you here is it's an inference question, right? So it's something that you have to infer. The answer is not going to be there. You have to kind of take it one step further. So let me show you where we get this answer because I think it is tricky. Here, within the vertical distance of just a few tens of meters, trees disappear as a life form and are replaced by. Okay, so the trees are replaced by, and then this rapid zone of transition is called the upper timberline. Okay, now here, what I think this means is it goes from forest to a different area, right? So upper timberline has like shrubs, herbs, grasses. Lower timberline goes from forest to desert because of lack of moisture. So here they're both going to mark the forest boundaries. Okay, so let's take a look here. The answer is B, right? The answer is B because they both mark the forest boundaries. They're different. Lower timberline is forest to low shrubs. Upper timberline is forest to desert, lower edge. I would say that's a very difficult question. Very difficult question. But okay, let's move on to the next one. Paragraph 2 supports which of the following statements about deciduous trees? Great word if you are following along and you want to improve your vocabulary. Deciduous. Deciduous is an adjective, and I'll explain that in a second, what that means. The upper timberline, like the snow line, is highest in the tropics and lowest in the polar regions. It ranges from sea level in the polar regions to 4,500 meters in the dry subtropics and 3,500 to 4,500 meters in the moist tropics. Timberline trees are normally evergreens, suggesting that these have some advantage over deciduous trees, those that lose their leaves in extreme environments in upper timberline. You can't see the whole screen? Let's see if I click out of here. What about now? Can you guys see the whole screen? Okay, so deciduous. What's nice here is because it's a new word, they actually give you the definition. So we have deciduous trees lose their leaves. Deciduous. Thank you, Moy. Good to see you again. Deciduous. Yes. Just making sure I'm spelling this. So deciduous trees lose their leaves. Okay, the opposite would be an evergreen tree, which does not lose its leaves. It stays, the leaves stay through the winter as well. Tree keeps its leaves. So hopefully that's a new word for you. In the extreme environments of the upper timberline, there are some areas, however, where broadleaf deciduous trees form the timberline. Species of birch, for example, may occur at the timberline in parts of the Himalayas. Okay, paragraph 2 supports which of the following statements about deciduous trees? They cannot grow in cold climates. Well, here we have in extreme environments. So I think that they can grow even in cold climates. They do not exist at the upper timberline. They are less likely than evergreens to survive at the upper timberline. They do not require as much moisture as evergreens do. Okay, let's go and take a look here if you guys can read. Reina, yeah, I'm going to post it on my YouTube channel. You can follow this video. So go ahead and take a look and post your answer, please. Okay, so we're talking about deciduous trees. Here, timberline trees are normally evergreens. Okay, so they're normally evergreens. Remember, we're talking about evergreens versus deciduous, suggesting that they have some advantage over deciduous trees in extreme environments. Okay, so they do not exist at upper timberline. Deciduous trees, they do exist, but what we're saying here is that evergreens have some advantage over deciduous trees. Here's the answer. Correct. So they're less likely than evergreens to survive at the upper timberline. Correct. That's going to be the answer here. Evergreens, they're kind of saying it the opposite, right? Evergreens have some advantage, and then C, they say they're less likely than evergreens. That's very common. Nope. The answer is going to be C. Okay, if you have any questions about that, let me know. Moving on to the next one. The word attain. Okay, I like the vocabulary ones. I like the vocabulary questions. At the upper timberline, the trees begin to become twisted and deformed. This is particularly true for trees in the middle and upper latitudes, which tend to attain greater heights on ridges. whereas in the tropics, the trees reach their greatest heights in the valleys. Okay. The trees tend to attain greater heights on ridges. Adam, Zane, Ronnie, Kasia, thank you, thank you. As you can see, this is by everyone's kind of getting the same answer. It tells me that this is an easier question. So correct. To attain something is to achieve it. Nice job. Very good vocabulary there. All right. Now we have another vocabulary. This one's a little bit more difficult. Okay, the word prone in the passage is closest to meaning to. In the tropics, the valleys appear to be more favorable because they are less prone to dry out. They are less prone to dry out. So in the tropics, valleys appear to be more favorable because they are less prone to dry out. They have less frost, and they have deeper soils. So let me know what you have here for prone. Correct. If you're prone to do something, you're likely to do it. Correct. Excellent. Nice job. So the answer is B. Okay. According to paragraph 3, which of the following is true of trees in the middle and upper latitudes? The middle and the upper latitudes. So what is true? At the upper timberline, the trees begin to come twisted and deformed. Okay, another good vocabulary is, what is deformed? What is deformed? What does that word mean? Anyone? So in this case, like the trees are not normal shape, right? They're twisted. They're different. They're not a normal shape here. This is particularly true for trees in the middle and upper latitudes, which tend to attain greater heights on ridges, whereas in the tropics, the trees reach their greater heights in the valleys. This is because middle and upper latitude timberlines are strongly influenced by the duration and the depth of the snow cover. As the snow is deeper and lasts longer in the valleys, trees tend to gain greater heights on the ridges, even though they are exposed to high velocity winds and poor, thin soils there. In the tropics, the valleys appear to be more favorable because they are less prone to dry out, they have less frost, and they have deeper soils. So which of the following is true? So let's take a look here. I'm going to give you a chance to look at these question choices. Tree growth is negatively affected by the snow cover in the valleys. Tree growth is greater in the valleys than on the ridges. Tree growth on ridges is not affected by high velocity winds. Tree growth lasts longer in those latitudes than it does in the tropics. So I'm going to kind of go through and tell you how I would answer this question. So there's a few things here. Tree growth lasts longer, right? We're not talking about like one tree grows faster or longer than another one, right? I can eliminate D very easily. That one I would eliminate immediately. Okay, so that now we have A, B, and C. Okay, so we've gone from 25% guess to 33% guess. Let's take a look. Tree growth on ridges is not affected by high velocity winds. Well, let's see. Even though they are more exposed to high velocity winds, right here, so that can't be true either. So now we're at 50-50. It's not D, it's not C, so it has to be either A or B. Okay, and now here's where I'm going to ask anyone following along. Do you think it's A or B? Do you think tree growth is negatively affected by the snow cover in the valleys? Or tree growth is greater in the valleys than on the ridges? Okay, a lot of people are getting B. Okay, but really, it doesn't say that tree growth is greater in the valleys than on the ridges, right? It says trees tend to grow higher heights on the ridges. So it's the opposite, right? Tree growth is greater on the ridges than in the valleys. It's the exact opposite. So if we look here, so the answer is going to be the tree growth is negatively affected by the snow cover in the valleys. Okay, and we can see that here. As the snow is deeper and lasts longer in the valleys, trees tend to grow greater heights on the ridges. So it's negatively affected on the snow cover in the valleys. So the answer here is going to be A. Really tough question. I thought that was really, and they kind of tricked you, right? It was the opposite. So tree growth is greater on the ridges than the valleys. It's the opposite. All right, next question here. Ooh, highlighted sentence, which I think is tricky. Most of my students have the most trouble with these questions, but I will go through all of the answer choices. I think that's the best thing to do when practicing, and not only to find out why it's right, but also to find out why the others are wrong. So here's the highlighted sentence. Wind velocity also increases with altitude that may cause serious stress for trees, as is made evident by the deformed shapes at high altitudes. Please, what is altitude? Altitude. For those that don't know, can you give me an example? What is altitude? So altitude is going to be like the height above the sea level. So the higher we up, like a mountain, or if you're very high from the sea level, it's going to be a higher altitude. So wind velocity, and what is velocity? These are all good words. Some of you may know them. Some of you may need a refresher. It's just another for speed. So wind velocity also increases with altitude and may cause serious stress for trees, as is made evident by the deformed shape at high altitudes. Right? So trees might be like knocked over, they might be on their side, they don't grow straight like normal. Okay, let's take a look here. A. Because of their deformed shapes at high altitudes, trees are not likely to be seriously harmed by the strong winds. Well, here, look at that. Not likely to be seriously harmed. And here, may cause serious stress for trees. That's going to be not A. So we're going to take out A, not A. As altitude increases, the velocity of winds increase. That's true, leading to a serious decrease in the number of trees that found at high altitudes. Well, they're not really saying a serious decrease in the number of trees, right? They're talking about like deformed shapes. Excuse me. So not B either. So now we're left with C and D. Okay? So let's take a look at C and D. C. The deformed shape of trees at high altitudes show that wind velocity, which increase with altitude, can cause serious hardship for trees. Well, here, serious hardship, I would say that a synonym, serious hardship would be like deformed shapes. So I like C, but let's take a look at D as well and see what the difference is. Increased wind velocity at high altitudes deforms the shapes of trees. True. And this may cause serious stress for trees. Increased wind velocity at high altitudes deforms the shapes of trees. Ah, I understand. Okay, here's why D is incorrect. Okay, and this is a tricky one. It's right here. Increased wind velocity at high altitudes deforms the shapes of trees. Okay, and the deformed shapes may cause serious stress. It's not that, right? It's the wind velocity that causes serious stress for trees, not the deformed shapes of the trees. Look at how the wording is here. Increased wind velocity at high altitudes deforms the shapes of trees. And this may cause serious stress for trees. The deformed shapes of trees does not cause serious stress. It's the wind velocity. So the answer here is C. The answer is C. That was really, really tricky. It took me a second to figure that out. So you got to be really careful with this in the wording. The answer is C for that. All right. We're getting to the last couple questions here, 27. In paragraph 4, what is the author's main purpose in the discussion of dramatic cessation of tree growth at the upper timberline? Well, what is cessation? What is cessation? It's a noun. We know it's a noun. Does anyone want to take a guess what cessation is? Cessation is, and I just got this from my dictionary, is being brought to an end, to cessation, to stop. Yeah, nehal, very good. Exactly. So, the author's main purpose in the discussion of the dramatic stopping or cessation of tree growth at the upper timberline. So, let's take a look here. Make sure we can see everything. There's no universally agreed upon explanation for why there should be such a dramatic cessation of tree growth at the upper timberline. Various environmental factors may play a role. Too much snow, for example, can smother trees, and avalanches and snow creep can damage or destroy them. Late lying snow reduces the effective growing season to the point where seedlings cannot establish themselves. Wind velocity also increases with altitude and may cause serious stress for trees, as made evident by the deformed shapes at high altitudes. Some scientists have proposed that the presence of increasing levels of ultraviolet light with elevation may play a role, while browsing and grazing animals like the ibex may be another contributing factor. Probably the most important environmental factor is temperature. For if the growing season is too short and temperatures are too low, tree shoots and buds cannot mature sufficiently to survive the winter months. So, what is the main purpose of all of this information? So let's go through. To argue that none of several environmental factors are believed to contribute to the phenomenon. None of those factors, to argue that none of those factors are believed to contribute to that phenomenon do in fact play a role in causing it. Well, no one says that they don't believe it. Yeah, I don't, this one is incorrect, right? They're just giving you examples. They're not arguing. So here again, B, they're not really making an argument. To an argument in support of one particular explanation of that phenomenon against several competing explanations. They're not competing against anything. It's not, excuse me, it's not it's not like this versus that. So A and B, we can take out. C, to explain why the primary environmental factor responsible for that phenomena has not yet been identified. Primary environmental factor, no, because they mentioned many different factors. So it's not going to be C. So it's not A, it's not B, it's not C, so it has to be D, right? But let's just double check. To present several environmental factors that may contribute to a satisfactory explanation of that phenomenon. Correct, several factors, right? Too much snow, can some other trees. Okay, they also mentioned increasing levels of ultraviolet light, grazing animals like the ibex. Okay, so also temperature. They give you so many explanations here. The answer here is going to be D. So nice job for those that contributed. All right, 28. According to paragraph 6, all of the following statements are true of plants in the Alpine zone except. Okay, when it is an except question, I like to look at the answers first because it helps me like identify them very quickly, right? So we're talking about the plants in the Alpine zone. Because they are low, they are less exposed to strong winds. Because they are low, winter snow cover gives them more protection from the extreme cold. In equatorial mountains, they tend to be lower than in mountains elsewhere. Their low growth form keeps them close to the ground, where there is more heat than further up. I want to give you a trick, okay? I want to give you a trick here that something I've learned by like teaching TOEFL. Which one is different? Just looking at all of these, which one is different than the others? They're all the same except one. One is different. And I can show you. Here we're talking about plants being very low, right? Here, because they are low. B, because they are low. And here, they're low growth. So A, B, and D, they're all talking about the same. I can kind of guess here that it's going to be C, right? Without even looking or reading, because it's the only one that's different here. But let's take a look and make sure. The striking characteristic of plants in the Alpine zone is their low growth form. This enables them to avoid the worst rigors of high winds. Okay, so right, they're less exposed to strong winds. We can cross that out. To make use of the high temperatures immediately adjacent to the ground surface, right? Yep, this is going to be D. There's more heat on the ground surface than in the air. In an area where low temperatures are limiting to life, the importance of additional heat near the surface is crucial. That goes to D as well. The low growth form can also permit the plants to take advantage of the insulation provided by a winter snow cover. Good. Insulation here is going to give them cover for more protection. So the answer is C. Thank you, Esther. I appreciate the comment. Thank you. The answer is C. All right, so we have two more questions. And then I'm going to finish for today. I'm just going to do one paragraph today, but I will be back. So I hope you can join, subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you subscribe to my YouTube channel, then you'll get updates on when I will post. I'm going to try and do them at the same time every day. Let's do the last two. We have the text insertion question. Okay, here's the trick, right? I always look at this one first. If you pay attention to the bold sentence, it's going to give you some clues to the answer. This explains how, for example, alpine cushion plants have been found growing at an altitude of 6,180 meters. Well, here's the clue, right? This explains how. What is this? We have to find what is this. Okay. Above the tree line, there's a zone that is generally called the Alpine tundra. Okay, does that explain why plants have been found at a growing altitude? No, it doesn't. It doesn't really explain that. So A, I take out A. I don't think this is the first choice. Immediately adjacent to the timberline, the tundra consists of a fairly complete cover of low-lying shrubs, herbs, and grasses, while higher up the number and diversity of species decrease until there is much bare ground with occasional mosses and lichens and some prostrate cushion plants. Now, does that explain why they're growing at an altitude? Right? I don't think so. I don't think so. So it's not B either. It doesn't, I'm not getting an answer. We should find an answer to why they are growing at a high altitude. So not A, not B. Some plants can even survive in favorable microhabitats above the snow line. The highest plants in the world occur at around 6,100 meters on the Makalu in the Himalayas. Does it explain how they grow? I'm not understanding. It doesn't say how they're growing at an altitude. Let's look at the last one. At this great height, rocks warmed by the sun melt small snowdrifts. Does that explain how plants could be found to grow at such a high altitude? Well, it does, right? It says at this height, rocks are warmed by the sun and they melt the snow. So if they melt the snow, that could be a good explanation for how plants can grow at a high altitude of 6,180 meters. So the answer here is going to be D. So a reminder, I looked here and I needed to find an answer. What is the answer to how plants can grow so high? And the answer to that is going to be rocks warmed by the sun, melt snowdrifts. So then we can put the answer right here into D. Nice job. All right, last one for the day. All right, remember, we're finding the main ideas here. At the timberline, whether up or lower, there's a profound change in the growth of trees and other plants. All right, so let's take a look. Birch is one of the few species of tree that can survive in extreme environments of the upper timberline. Birch is a type of tree, and it's a detail. If they're talking about a specific type of tree, it is a detail. So I don't think that A is going to be one of our choices. We're looking for main idea. There is no agreement among scientists as to exactly why plant growth is sharply different above and below the upper timberline. There is no agreement, right? There are some theories, but we don't know. And I like this one. This one's going to be a main idea. So I like B. The temperature at the upper timberline is probably more important in preventing tree growth than such factors as snowfall or the force of wind. More important? I don't think so. I don't think that's true. We never really talked about that. So I'm gonna put a question mark. It's okay. Like I think with this one, you kind of put like you can put like a question. Like, all right, I'm not sure if C is the answer. I don't think so, but let's see what the other ones are. This geographical location of an upper timberline has an impact on both the type of tree found there and their physical characteristics. Well, that's true, right? They were talking about the types of trees, the evergreens, and their physical characteristics. They were saying they were deformed because of the high wind. So I like this one. I like D. Okay, I know it's not A. Maybe C, but not A. Let's take a look at the last two and see if one kind of comes out as the most important here. High levels of ultraviolet light most likely play a greater role in determining the tree growth at the upper timberline than do grazing animals such as the ibex. We went through this in the previous paragraph, and they never said more likely. They gave many explanations. But they were not saying like one was more than the other. So E for sure. I'm taking out E. A and E for sure. So now it leaves C and F. Okay, so let's see which one is better. Despite being adjacent to the timberline, the Alpine tundra is an area where certain kinds of low trees can endure winds and very low temperatures. That was the that accept question, right? They're covered by snow. They're not exposed to high levels of wind. It's warmer, very low. So I like this one here. So let's check the answers here, and correct B, D, and F are the best answers for that one. Okay, let me stop sharing my screen, and I have my webcam here. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Sean. I'm a TOEFL teacher here in Denver, Colorado. I'm really, we don't have any class or school going on, so I figure if you are interested in studying while we're here in lockdown, I'm happy to help. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm going to upload all of my videos to YouTube. So here is my YouTube channel. It's called Widespread English. You just type that in, subscribe, and I will update all of my videos. I'm going to try and do these as much as possible. Ronnie said, how can I distinguish between the main idea and the detailed answers? I have to return the paragraph and read again. This question, I think, right. For the last question, my advice is not to give yourself too much time on this question. The more you practice, I think the easier it will be to like get the main idea. Usually main idea means that it encompasses like an entire paragraph, and you've read those paragraphs answering the questions. So with practice, I don't think that you need to go back and do these. So yeah, I don't think that you need to go back and do those. And the more we practice, the easier it will be for you. But I don't want students to spend too much time on this question because, I think it's a difficult question, the last one. And, I don't want you to like waste time on other questions if you're struggling with this one. So please subscribe and let me know where you're from. I see some people and maybe I can guess where you're from, but I'd love to where are you studying from? Are you in South America? Are you in Middle East? Are you in Europe? Where are you? Um, yeah, let's connect. Let's do this together. And I look forward to doing this again. So thank you very much, and we'll connect very soon. Bye.